Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about genre analysis. Now, this is a good general skill to have. It's something that you want to be able to do. It may also be a particular assignment that an instructor gives you in something like a first-year composition course or a writing-driven literature course. So, first off, let's talk about what genre means. Now, genre has a couple of broad meanings, but basically, genre is about classification. It's about the type of... In this case, we're largely focusing on artistic works. So that may be literature, that may be music, that may be film and television, whatever it is, painting, statue, whatever it is. So when we talk about genre, we're typically talking about the arts, and we're talking about developing classification. So there's a couple of different ways that this may work. One is what we might call I'm going to call it genre as form. That's not necessarily a great description, but I'll explain what I mean, and it'll become clearer, I think. So we've got kind of genre as form, and we've got a kind of genre as style or mood. So when we talk about genre as form, what we're talking about is a particular approach to using the tools within an artistic branch. So for me, the most immediate example of this would be within literature. Poetry is a genre. Fiction is a genre. Creative nonfiction is a genre. Critical theory is a genre. Drama is a genre. So these are different sort of modes of working with language. All of these are written, are based in writing, written texts, but they're different styles, different approaches. So the rules of poetry, for instance, are different than the rules of fiction. And there's a generally pretty clear distinction between the two of them. These are both genres. They're forms of writing. If we're thinking about the visual arts, we've got painting, we've got statuary, we've got multimedia or multimodal arts, things like this. These are all different forms of the same sort of broad category. So that's one approach to genre. And that's generally pretty straightforward. There's not necessarily that much, like, very few people are going to give you an assignment where you would have to say where you would have to analyze, say, Shakespeare's Sonnet 18 to figure out whether it's a poem or not. Like, that's not really the type of assignment that someone would give you. You may conceptually be asked to analyze, in something like a literature class, you may conceptually be asked to analyze the different genres. Like what are the characteristics of poetry? What are the characteristics of drama? Whatever it is. You may be asked to do a project like that, but in most instances, I think that's not going to be that common, because these types of genres, these types of differences tend to be fairly clear-cut and fairly overt. Now, the other type of genre that we tend to talk about is a genre of style or of mood. And this is, I think, an instance in which film and television is a really easy way to think about this. Music is another easy way to think about this. So what's the difference, for instance, between punk rock and rap and classical music and light jazz? These are different genres of music. What's the difference between a romantic comedy and an action thriller and a horror movie and a children's holiday special? These are the kinds of differences, the kind of genre analysis you're much more likely to be asked to do in something like a first-year writing class. So, analyze a film like Jaws. What genre does Jaws belong to, and why? What are the characteristics? So if we're going to say Jaws is a horror film, which is a fair, generic assessment of it, why? How do we know? What are the generic components or the generic qualifications for a horror film? What does a horror film look like? So we typically have an inhuman or semi-human antagonist. We tend to have a good amount of violence. We tend to have a large portion of the conflict driven by suspense. We tend to have an immediate physical or psychological threat posed to the protagonist. Sorry, my camera cut out there. But this is not an exhaustive list of the generic conventions of horror, but you get the idea here. So, I mean, much of what we think about, again, this is genre analysis is a classification game. And so one of the techniques that we use when we're doing genre analysis